Our U.S. trade deal is on the chopping block, as Mark Carney said that he won't budge on their new demands. But don't worry, it's not like the Canada-US part of the USMCA agreement is worth over $900 billion a year or anything. My name is Nico Lavigne, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the liberals. We are the political orphans. As you can see, Rob's not here today. We don't have a liberal. We have another conservative, Mr. Jason Lavigne, joining us. So thank you, sir, for, I don't want to say replacing Rob, for making it more conservative. Let's say that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's always a pleasure, bro. But before we jump on the main topic of the day, on the new development of the U.S. trade deal, we are joined by none other than the president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, John Carpay. And he's here to talk about their new report, Death by 1,000 Clicks. Mr. John Carpay, bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Glad to be with you and all of your listeners and viewers. And hello, Jason.
Hello, John. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. It was just last night or the night before I saw you.
Oh, it's true. You know what? Since you guys are both there, I wanted to ask you, John, because I know you were, I don't know if you were someone of honor at the show, but you guys are probably referring to the new documentary. What's the name of Greg? What's his last name?
The Hate Network?
Yes,
Wycliffe.
The Hate Network. Wycliffe, thank you. So how was it? How was the night?
I love the documentary. It was very well done. It's being screened. It was screened in Calgary on the 16th, and then it's going to be in Toronto and I believe Ottawa. I'm not sure if it's coming to Montreal. And so he's got great interviews with people like Dr. Francis Widdowson and Pastor Art Pawlowski, the Ottawa area nurse, Helen Gruss, and University professor David Haskell, on and on and on, talking about their experiences and the problem of censorship in Canada. And then, it was great people there. It was just a very nice event.
Glad to hear.
Yeah, and I just want to make one quick correction. That would be Detective Helen Gruss, which is the Ottawa Police Services. She's an officer who was investigating the deaths of some babies there. And it was good to see her in there, along with Bruce Pardy and Mia Hughes and so many others. It was a fantastic documentary.
How dare she actually question the parents on the death of those children? How dare she? It's insane. That whole story is crazy. I'm actually happy that the documentary's out, because now I'm gonna get to have her on the show, because she was not doing any type of interviews until the documentary was out. So hopefully she starts doing it. She starts doing them, because her story needs to be told. This is absolutely lunacy that we have a detective that cares so much about children that she wants to investigate further, and then she gets in trouble. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Absolutely insane. How dare you do your work?
I think it's evil. It's beyond stupid. I mean, she's asking questions. She the way that it was in the documentary. I've met her once. I don't know her well, but just very open-minded, very thoughtful. Well, what's going on here? We have an increase in children's deaths. Looking at the example of a young boy who died from, he had an enlarged heart. That was the son of the hockey. The son played a lot of hockey. And one of the babies had an enlarged heart. And, shut up and don't ask questions. That tells you everything you need to know about the agenda. Because if you're operating from a position of truth and justice, you don't have to say, don't ask questions. You can say, let's ask the questions. Let's go ahead. But when people are saying, shut up and don't ask questions, that's a red flag that there's evil that is present.
Couldn't agree with you more. This brings us to your new report, because death by 1,000 click, that's pretty much what we're seeing now, is the internet is getting already censored. It's going to get a lot worse We're one vote, we're one MP away from giving the Liberals a majority, and we all know this is a matter of time. Like I called this a month and a half ago when D'Entremont actually joined the Liberals. I'm like, oh, there we go, 6 months, they'll have their majority. But what's your new report about? Because censorship is something that in Canada we need to get used to because it's coming.
Well, we shouldn't get used to it, but no, I don't disagree. I mean, we're going in the wrong direction, but the way to fight back is to keep on speaking and not get used to it. But what the report does is it summarizes 6 bills. 2 of them passed already. One of them that died with the April 2025 election, but that might be brought back, and then 3 of them now before Parliament. And so it's the combined effect that is very sinister. The first, the pillar of it was in 2023 with the Online Streaming Act, and that broadened the authority of the CRTC, the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission. The CRTC previously had authority over broadcasting, meaning radio and television. And this new law on the books already now for 2 years, the Online Streaming Act gives the CRTC authority over the Canadian internet so that podcasts and videocasts like the one that we're doing tonight are actually under the authority of the CRTC as broadcasting. So broadcasting has been redefined for anything that is online. So that's pretty scary because you've got this appointed, you've got this bureaucratic body that has been given power by legislation to create regulations and to mess with the algorithms so that the content that it favors comes to the front first, and the content that is less favored is harder to find on the internet. And it's not outright censorship, but this actually came up in today's Globe and Mail, where the U.S. Trade representative said that the Online Streaming Act is a problem because they don't believe in government messing with the internet in this fashion. And so it's actually an impediment to more trade talks. So in addition to harming our minds and our souls, it's going to hurt our wallets as well.
That's just for the people listening. That's Bill C-11. That's the one that you're referring to as Online Streaming Act. Most of us remember numbers, not necessarily words, right? So C-11 for the people that are asking. The other one that you were referring to that passed under Trudeau in 2023 is the Online News Act, Bill C-18, right? Yeah.
And that was a foolish attempt to try to extract money from Meta and Google, and saying that it was, unfair to Canadian news outlets, meaning their favorite government-funded news outlets. It was unfair that Facebook was distributing these links. And so the government was hoping to collect a lot of money off of Meta, but Meta said, oh, well, fine, then we'll just ban you can't share news links anymore. So the readership of Canadian media has actually declined because of the Online News Act, Bill C-18. And Google decided to pay a flat fee of $100 million a year, which is going to fund the government's favorites, the media that are on board with and in line with the narrative that the government wants us to hear.
This is where you and I are, I'm going to take it even further than what you're saying, because you're always, one of the things I like about you is that you stick to what you see, to what you know, to what you can prove. I, as just a commentator, I get to go down rabbit holes and say, and actually put hypothesis of what actually happened there, but Trudeau knew exactly what he was doing. Like, this was brilliant. C-18 to me is brilliant. Let's ask a bunch of money of Meta knowing that they won't give it to us so that they get to censor our news. It's brilliant when you think about it, because this is what I believe really happened. They knew Meta would never pay. What would they pay? They don't give anybody else money for their news. It's content. They make money off of it. They're not going to give us money. So it was absolutely, absolutely brilliant. The way whoever told Trudeau, because we know you can't put Trudeau and brilliant in the same sentence, but whoever did it behind closed doors, it was evil, but it was actually brilliant. Any comments there, Jason?
Yeah, no, I actually like your analysis there, because that probably was the case. They knew that Meta wasn't going to go ahead and cough up billions of dollars over years just for the sharing of news, not even the creation on just Facebook for the news or Meta. It was even just for sharing it. But what John also highlighted there, which I think you're also dovetailing on, is it shut down some major ones like Western Standard and others who were building up a base, and their subscriptions were coming through their Facebook posts. That got all shut down. So it was a whole bunch of, I guess brilliant, maybe if you want to use that word, moves to go ahead and shut down Meta as being a content platform for news for smaller organizations that are building, and also to just censor the entire news industry in Canada altogether. And I do want to kind of just touch on one more thing here. Even though they now define us as broadcasters for the purpose of penalties, they do not recognize us as broadcasts for the purpose of privileges, like going to set up a camera in the parliament and going ahead and record stuff in courtrooms and go ahead and get access to media or news only pieces of information, or getting on lists for news releases. Like, we don't get the privileges, but we certainly will get the penalties.
The Western Standard, by the way, somebody mentioned it had gone out of business, but I mean, I'm going to their Christmas party tomorrow on Friday, so they're still up and running. But maybe you're referring to, I not up to date. Maybe they had a.
Oh no, I didn't say it went out of business. It closed down one of their business streams, which was getting subscriptions on their Facebook posts. So they had to change the model a little bit as soon as that happened. I was talking to Corey Morgan and Derek about that, because they were doing very well building their subscription through their Facebook platform. But when that got shut down, that really impacted their business.
I'm told that for whatever reasons, that X is not a part of this problem, and so people can freely share news links on X, which hopefully the Western Standard and other outlets can capitalize on that. I've also heard that X is doing really well in Europe because people just want to share news and speak freely, and that it's still a growing platform. So I'm glad that Elon Musk bought it and turned it into a space for free speech, safe space for free speech.
I think
one of
part
the
of
things, what I was going to say, one of the things that's interesting is I spend a lot of my time in the U.S., right? Normally it's 6 months, and there's a bunch of just Instagram. There's a bunch of accounts that I follow in the U.S. to get news. Can't access them from Canada because Bill C2 somehow blocks them. And I don't know if you saw that, but when X released that new feature that I believe they took off, I think they removed it. They haven't put it back in, or I'd have to confirm it, but they were showing the provenance of the account. So the person managing the account, which country in the world they were from, and places like CBC weren't here. CTV News was from the US. It's managed from the US. The Liberal Party's the Liberal Party's X account was managed from the US. So there's ways around our own legislation by sending whoever runs, because it could be anybody, right? Off a laptop, off of a cell phone, whoever runs the app was showing the provenance, the country in which they were located. So it was funny enough that CTV News, I believe it was CTV as well. If you go on their Instagram right now, you can't reach them from Canada on their Instagram because it says it, blocked. And even in their description, it says that they're blocked, that the Canadian government is blocking. So you can't see our content. It's absolutely insane. So go ahead. I think, Jason, you had something to say, right?
Yeah, I am just wondering if it's more of a corporate setup of why Facebook is blocking, is because they probably have a Meta Canada location, whereas X may not have any Canada identity on a corporate level. So I'm just kind of speculating on that one, but I know Facebook did have an office in Toronto at one point for their Canada business. So that's maybe why they took those steps, whereas X may not. They're probably just out of Palo Alto only, and they don't have a Canadian division.
So the other three bills that we talk about in our report are the bills C2, C8, C9. C2 is the Strong Borders Act. It should be called the Strong Surveillance Act. It would give Canada Post the right to open letter mail without a warrant. It makes it illegal to use cash for donating to charity, for paying bills in amounts greater than $10,000. which initially won't have too much impact on too many people. But the problem is, if you accept that perfectly legal transactions like donating to a charity, paying an invoice, if it's illegal to use 10,000 or more, it's very easy after that to lower that to 5,000 and then 1,000. And next thing you know, you'll be allowed to have $100 cash for garage sales. And it's a step towards central bank digital currency. And that's very scary, because that would give us just a horrible totalitarian control, where the government, if all of the money becomes only numbers inside of a computer, so you have no gold or silver and no cash, with which you can buy gold and silver, and it's all digital, then the government effectively can exercise terrifying powers against every citizen if everything becomes electronic. Whereas if you still have cash, right, you have a modicum of it's part of our freedom is to have cash.
Couldn't agree with you more. It was blocking 10,000 or below, but as you said, once it's in law, once it's part of the law, you can just tone it down, just like Carney did with the carbon tax. He didn't remove the carbon tax. He just swiped it down, because you know that at one point he's just going to swipe it back up, because he could have canceled it, but he didn't. So we know their intentions. Like, let's be honest here. That's Bill C2. Bill C2 also had the components. We talked about it. They also had the components of, if you have products going to the US or anywhere overseas, you can, the RCMP has now the right, or not, was it RCMP or was it Immigration Canada? It's one of the two now
I think
has.
it's the customs. The customs officials
customs.
Can open and inspect anything anywhere. It's not limited to the border. So if you're selling T-shirts out of your garage in Montreal, they can come in there and inspect as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
now, the
that
good
was
news is,
CBSA, you're right.
because there was so much pushback against this Bill C2, the Strong Borders Act, there was so much pushback that the government has effectively put it on the back burner. The thread is not gone entirely, but they've really backed away from it, because from across the political spectrum, there are so many people were speaking out against Bill C2 and this brand new Authorized Access to Information Act, which would give new powers to thousands of government officials, not just police, but all kinds of government officials, to inspect cell phones and computers and gather subscriber data. Very pernicious. Now, Bill C8 gives the federal cabinet power to kick Canadians off the internet. And then Bill C9 is the Combating Hate Act, which would make us more like the United Kingdom, where every day there's over 30 people arrested over their social media commentary. If you, in the United Kingdom, if you speak out against immigration, or you say we have too many immigrants or the wrong kinds of immigrants, or, you know, we need different kinds of people coming here, too many people coming here, if you say it very diplomatically, then, you know, maybe it could be okay. But if you speak freely and the authorities don't like it, you get the police knocking on your door. And so what Bill C9 does, the Combating Hate Act, is it removes an existing requirement whereby hate speech prosecutions cannot proceed until they have the approval of the Attorney General or the Justice Minister. And that's a safeguard. It's a sober second thought. It's a review process. And because of that, we have not had very many hate speech prosecutions in Canada. We have about 1 or 2 or 3 every decade. It's quite rare. So they're going to scrap that review process. So now the local police can determine, maybe based on complaints or based on their own subjective feelings, what they feel is hateful. You're going to see way more hate speech prosecutions against Canadians if Bill C9 passes. This is the one where between now and Christmas, I would urge people to contact your MP and say, vote against Bill C9, or I will vote against you in the next election.
You know, the one thing that's worth mentioning about Bill C8 before we talk about Bill C9 is, I come from the tech world, right? I was a telecommunication expert. I was a sales engineer for more than a decade. And I read the bill, and one of the things that I can tell you, they're not talking about it in the bill, but one of the things that they're doing is allowing to put the infrastructure in place to install AI, because a lot of the bill is about servers. It's about gaining access to telecommunication companies' space. So let's say that I did a lot of business with the government in the past, and let's say that I host servers, so I have mega data centers where the government can host their own stuff within my building. They ask to have access to it. There's a bunch of stuff that they ask that is not normally given out, and the only reason I could see them asking or even talking about this is that they're trying to implement something big, because normally the government is not necessarily going to use other people's space because that infringe on protection, because now you're responsible for a company to provide you protection to protect your servers because they're not even on your premise anymore. But as I was reading the bill, all I could think of is AI. They're trying to set up the infrastructure in order to implement AI, because one of the things, and I've told you this before, I think we agreed on this, and even when we had Bruce Party on the show, he agreed with this, but this is a big fuck you bill. C2, C8, C9, C12, C16, the new C63. Which one were you talking about? C2, you had, I just want to mention them, C11, C18 are all part of the one big fuck you censorship bill, but they split it out into different portions. But if you look at Bill C9, it defines what hate is, which is greater than disdain. Bill C63 needs hate. It needs to have a definition of hate. So it's not even part of the bill, the next bill that's going to be the worst of them all. It's actually defined in C9 so that C63 can use it. It's very smart what they're doing, but it's scary. It's
sinister. Yeah, then the sixth bill, which we hadn't talked about, is the one that could be brought back. It would not surprise me if they reintroduced it, and that was the Online Harms Act. That was C63. It died with the election in April 2025, but it was horrific. It would have empowered the federal cabinet to pass regulations, which of course, without any input from Parliament, without any public debate. They pass regulations on the content of what you can and cannot say. And then a brand new agency called the Digital Safety Commission would be created with hundreds of bureaucrats to police the internet in Canada to enforce whatever regulations the federal cabinet has passed without input from Parliament. On top of that, new powers to the Canadian Human Rights Commission to prosecute Canadians over non-criminal speech that they deem to be discriminatory, which is a very broad umbrella. So you've already got a problem with the hate speech laws, which are political and arbitrary. And I say that because in Canada today, it is illegal to willfully promote hatred against people on the basis of their skin color or their sexual orientation. It is not illegal to willfully promote hatred against Canadians based on their occupation, based on their wealth, based on their social status, based on their vaccination status. There are thousands of ways that you can legally promote hate against people. It's completely legal, except not skin color, religion, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation. So it's a very arbitrary law whereby, if I say death to the X religious group, it's a hate crime. But if I say death to the people that don't roll up their sleeves and get injected with the substance that we're being asked to get injected with in 2021, that's not a hate crime. I can say death to the bankers, death to the lawyers, death to the factory owners, death to the wealthy. That's all legal. But if I say, death to group X based on sexual orientation or religion, then it's a crime. So it's completely arbitrary.
And let's be a little bit fair about that. Even if you did say death to a certain group, there's certain ones that are not protected. So there's certain groups that I belong in that definitely don't get those kind of protections, or my church either. And part of, I think, some of this, what we're seeing here, John, is the definition of hate is coming into the criminal code in Bill 9, which is something Bill 63 wasn't doing. So once Bill 9 passes and that definition makes its way into the criminal code, I can see Bill 63 coming back in its new form, because now the definition of hate is now in the criminal code, and that allows them to kind of like Lego build up these crazy laws. when it comes to online hate. Whereas before it might have been more of a challenge, like what is online hate? Well, there's no definition of hate at that time. Now there's going to be one in the criminal code. So I think just like Lego, we're going to see them build that wall right back up.
Yeah, the criminal code, the prohibition on willful promotion of hatred has been on the books for decades, and it was narrowly, in a 4-3 decision, it was upheld by the Supreme Court of Canada as a justified restriction on free expression. Part of the rationale of the court was that there was all these defenses available, and Bill C-9 now seeks to get rid of one of the defenses, which is expressing an opinion in good faith based on a belief in a religious text. Mm-hmm. And that offered some protection if an Orthodox rabbi or a Catholic priest or evangelical pastor or Muslim imam wants to teach publicly what their scriptures have to say about human sexuality, and their scriptures say that gay sex is sinful. If that's done in good faith, then you cannot be prosecuted for hate speech. But now with Bill C-9, it's a threat to religious freedom because it would get rid of that defense. So that's another very serious problem for religious freedom in Canada.
What do you think about Bill C-63? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but if they bring it back in a very similar fashion as it was crafted before, the complaints, the online complaints were anonymous. You were not like, I don't remember ever seeing that in a criminal court before, where you did not get to face your accuser.
Your accuser, yeah.
Do I remember this right? Because this is one of the things that really, of all the things that was in there, one of the things that really worried me is no representation whatsoever. Somebody can say whatever they want online. There's no timeline to it either. They can go back as far as they want. And I don't get to face my accuser.
Well, there was that one, Nico. Sorry, I also want to remind you about the pre-crime one, part 63 as well. So maybe you might do a crime. That was in there as well.
Yeah, the Online Harms Act, the C-63 that died with the election, had a provision in there as well that would give judges the power to place you under house arrest, make you wear an ankle bracelet, make you respect a curfew, et cetera, if your neighbor can convince the judge that you might commit a hate speech crime in future. So we're talking about somebody who has not been charged with any crime. There's been no trial, there's been no conviction, there's been no finding of guilt, and preemptively, the judge would be empowered to place restrictions on you, like house arrest, ankle bracelet, having to provide urine samples to prove that you're not taking drugs, confiscation of your legally owned firearms. It's just unbelievable. In terms of the right to face your accuser, how they get around this, that they say, oh, well, the Canadian Human Rights Commission, that's not criminal. So when you get prosecuted by the Canadian Human Rights Commission because some anonymous person has filed a complaint over something you said on social media, well, you don't have the right to face your accuser, and you don't even have the right to a fair trial, but it doesn't matter because it's not criminal. And it's a very insidious argument because there's a kernel of truth in it. It is not criminal. You could be found guilty of violating the Canadian Human Rights Code because you said something discriminatory. You don't get a criminal record. When you travel to the US, it's not going to show up as having a criminal record. However, it is extremely stressful, time-consuming, money-consuming to be on the receiving end of a human rights complaint, and that's why if that ever goes through, I'm going to urge everybody to file every day when you wake up in the morning. Sit down, go through the news, and file 10 human rights complaints against people that you disagree with what they say, and clog up their whole system. That would be the way to fight back.
And one more thing to remember. Yeah, sorry, Nico.
No, go ahead, Jason. No, go ahead.
For both of those is, yeah, it may not be criminal at that time, but once an order is placed to pay a fine, and if you're unable to pay that fine, a court order can go against you, and then suddenly you're in violation of court orders, which is criminal. And the same thing on the other side as well. When you get these ankle bracelets or house arrest and all those kind of things, if you show up late and you can't explain it, or for whatever reason, you're just one step away from stepping into the criminal court side of things. And these are kind of like the gateways into criminal. So even though maybe it started off as not criminal, you can find yourself in the criminal courts pretty quickly by not being able to afford a fine, violating a court order, or maybe showing up home a little bit late that night.
Yeah, if you disobey the court order, then that's a crime, right? So it's exactly how you've described. So technically, superficially, initially, it's non-criminal, but it very quickly becomes criminal. So what Canadians really need to do today, tomorrow, is contact their MPs. I don't care if he's Liberal, Conservative, NDP, Bloc, Green. Contact your MP and say, if you vote in favor of Bill C9, I'm going to vote against you in the next election, and have the same kind of pushback that we saw in regards to Bill C2, where the government backed down and somewhat and has put Bill C2 on the back burner. It's no longer a priority for the government.
The only thing I wanted to add is I believe your firm, the Justice Center, represented one of the many companies that got sued by Jonathan Yaniv or Jessica Simpson, the trans individual that was using those complaints in order to say, hey, you won't shave my balls, but those are women testicles, so you need to shave my balls. But it was proven afterwards that he was actually contacting them and saying, hey, give me that much money, and then I'll let the case go. So the punishment is often just the process itself. So it's a nightmare, but I like your approach, though, to say if that goes through, which I really hope I hope to God that it doesn't, that we overclog their system by complaining about absolutely everything.
Yeah, you turn on your computer, you watch the news, some politician that you don't like said something that you disagree with, and you go and you fill out the complaint form, and it was this politician, this date, he said this, I think this was a discriminatory comment, and fire it off. If they get thousands and thousands and thousands of complaints, it's going to, even just to review it and dismiss it initially without a hearing is very time consuming. But it's we've got to fight back. I mean, this is the result of decades of kind of acquiescence. People are very trusting of politicians, so they're not actively involved. They're not actively paying attention to what their kids are getting taught or not taught, like not taught history. And then you get this cultural decay, and then into that situation, you get horrible bills passed that, 50 years ago, 30 years ago would never have been passed.
Agreed. Thanks again, John. It's always a pleasure to have you on. It's always a pleasure to talk about women testicles. And
you brought that up, but anyway, his Twitter handle was wax my balls. That was his Twitter handle. I don't think it's the one he invented himself, but yeah.
But thanks for being here, John. Thank you for the work that you and your organization does, and can't wait to have you back on. Thanks again.
Well, have a great rest of the evening, both of you, and bye for now.
Merry Christmas if we don't talk until then.
Merry Christmas, Joyeux Noël. All right.
Merry Christmas, and there's 3 complaints right there. We all said Merry Christmas, so someone's going to put it.
All right. À la prochaine.
Yes. Bye, John. Well, there you have it. Absolutely.
I got to tell you, getting a lawyer to say "wax my balls," that's amazing.
I got. Who did I get? I got a pastor to swear, and I get a lawyer to say "wax my balls." I'm very good at having people saying appropriate things. Stu was saying, by the way, Stu, thank you for the tip. The government has it all wrong. We should be anonymous while we know everything about them. Oh, couldn't agree with you more. If it was up to me, we would have public access to their emails, their cell phones, their texts. We could listen live to any single conversation that goes through those phones. We would be able to review their emails. We could see their calendars. We would have cameras in every single room in the offices where they work. If they're in the House of Commons, we have our own streams. They're unedited. my boss had that when I worked in the telco world. They had access. It was a cell phone provided by work. They had access to everything that was going on there. There were cameras in the office. They could spy on me when I was working for them. Why can't we do that? Because at the end of the day, they work for us. We don't work for them. And this is the biggest thing. The government should be scared of its people, not the other way around.
I agree completely. And can you imagine we lived in a world where we can watch all their meetings, everything except for legitimate national security things, but everything else is out there, their schedule, their appointments, and actually have a camera in all those meetings and audio. They would absolutely govern themselves as well. And that's kind of why you would want to do that. And you look, they do the same thing to us. What do you got to hide? If you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have to worry. Flip that around right back to them. Hey, if you got nothing to hide, let me hear what's going on in that office in that in the E block of the Parliament. I want to hear every single meeting, please.
How great of a platform would that be for a leader? Let's say the new conservative leader, the party, the new leader of the Conservative Party comes in and say, you know what, as Prime Minister, I will make that happen. I will make sure that the public has access to everything that we do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They get to question and review what we do. Can you imagine? That would be a great fucking platform. I never thought about this before. That would be great.
Well, after my meetings yesterday, where I got to learn a little bit more about the history of Canada, Conservative Party, and some of the skeletons in all of those closets, I highly doubt that party would be the one who brings it forward in any way, shape, or form, because it would be exposing themselves just as much as anybody else. And I'd also like to be retroactive. Like, let's go back to before you were the leader. How was your career then? Is there anything that we can pull out from your trips to China? I had quite the meetings yesterday that opened my eyes up to a lot of things that I can't share right now, but it certainly would be interesting to hear, some of those conversations from even just a few years ago.
I agree. And here is a great comment by Sheridan. No politician in Canada would ever allow that. They're all corrupt. That's basically how I see it too.
Yep.
Well,
the RCMP said 89% are all compromised by China. So
89, can you imagine? That's the number they want to agree. They want to admit to. So it's probably a lot worse than 89.
Well, I think there's a few good ones in there that didn't take a trip to China and get themselves in trouble, but not many. There's not many.
Yeah, I agree. There's probably not many, but 89% sounds about right. I would think it's a bit more than that, but we can agree on, let's call it 90%. I could agree that 9 out of 10 politicians are corrupt. Yeah, I can go with that number 100%.
Corrupted or have been corrupted. In other words, something they did wrong has been held against them. There's various types of corruption, and some of them could be, hiding your ego or embarrassment issues. All of it is on the table. It just
Michael Ma. Michael Ma.
It's latest saying, I was a conservative that night. It was just after, like, whatever. But
yeah, sure, cool stuff.
Pay your ticket
met with the
pay
CPP.
for your entry.
You paid for the CPP. You literally met with the CPP, with CPP representative on the Monday that you chose to be a liberal. It's absolutely, that whole story is insane. And King is saying, Nico, did you see Trump's demand on continuing USMCA? Yeah, that's what we're going to address right now. So thank you. Perfect transition. I appreciate when people just feed me like that. But before we do, I want to remind you guys of our sponsor. The official sponsor of the Political Orphans is Gabble, the world's first live video debate app on the market. You can choose to sit back and watch, or if you have the balls like me, you can jump in and debate others. They have 10 different subjects every day. You do one-on-one with people that you don't know. 3-minute arguments or 3-minute debates. People vote for who they thought won. There's an AI there that decides tiebreakers. And next week on Tuesday, they're going to have their first one-on-one, their first real influencer, I guess, one-on-one. I'm going to be debating somebody that was also on Jubilee Media's Common Ground, so a leftist. So I don't know what we're debating. They're going to have like 5 topics we're going to debate. But yeah, you can join, watch us go at it. So look in the description below. The affiliate link is there. That being said, let's go to the next subject. And as Anne brought it up. We are talking about the USMCA, and for the people that don't understand, it is worth $900 billion a year. That's 900 billion B with a, it's billion with a B, just under $1 trillion is what it's worth if you consider the what's going to the US, what we're buying from the US, and the services that are exchanged between our two country. It varies between 900 to 950 billion dollars a year. It's absolutely insane how big that contract is. And they made demands, so we will talk about those demands because they have like 4 different demands that you can say. It's 3 or 4 depending how you see it. But I wanted to show a video before just because, you know, it's Thursday. We need to have a sense of humor about this. I don't know if you guys saw that, but today Doug Doughboy Ford went in front of the camera again. Carney was there, and he made some claims about the ads that he ran for Reagan. Don't worry, I'm not going to show the whole 2 minutes, but I want you to pay attention to Carney's face as Doug Ford is talking. It is absolutely hilarious. So here's Doug Ford and his beautiful claims.
Well, number one, that was the best ad that's ever been run. 12.4 billion views.
Look at Carney.
We wanted to bring it to the attention of the American people. And be very frank, it was President Trump. If he didn't comment on it, rather than 12.4 billion views, it might be 12.4 people viewing it. But
that's all I'm going to show because there's a few things that needs to be broken down here. But look at this. Look at the face. That Carney, I'm just going to look at his face right there. Did you see the eye roll? Like, oh boy. And one of the things that's funny is that Doug Ford claims that his ad had 12.4 billion views. Billion. The biggest, the most watched video of all time is Shark Thing. It's a song for children. I'm drawing a blank. It's do you know Shark? The song I'm talking? Baby Shark. So that is the most watched video of all time. 15 billion views. His ad did 12.4 billion. I don't think he knows the difference between impressions, as in it reached that many people, and people actually watched it. But it's hilarious to see Mark Carney in the back end rolling his eyes like, bro, you're on camera. Did you forget that people were recording you?
No, fair enough. And I think what Ford's doing there is he's just taking the audience reach potential, multiplying it by the number of times it was played, and calling that the number of views, which is not even close to being accurate, which is something Ford is really good at being, not accurate. And I think what you saw there in Carney's face was the realization he's going to have to go kiss some more Trump butt over that comment later, because he's going to have to go apologize later for that comment because he's standing right there doing it. So maybe less enthusiastic about the comment and more of, oh man, like I'm going to have to get on my knee again to apologize to Trump over this comment, because he's the one that has to do that. It's not Ford that has to do that. Carney will have to do that.
And it's not looking good for Carney, because if we look at the demands that were brought forward today, it is not good for Carney, and he's already responded. I don't know if you saw that, but he's already
I think he says he's not doing them.
He didn't say it that way, but that's pretty much what he's saying, as long as you understand what he's referring to. And here's a great article by the Epoch Times. U.S. Trade Representative cites access to Canadian dairy and alcohol markets as conditions for USMCA renewal. So alcohol market, obviously, that to me is a no-brainer. They used to have it. That was not a big deal until Quebec, Ontario, and I think there's other provinces,
BC.
But I know for a fact that...
BC, Quebec, Ontario.
BC?
Yeah.
There you go. Blocked access to... American alcohol, but the part here that could be massively disruptive is Canadian dairy. For the people out there that might not understand what's going on there, we have a massive mafia in Canada where prices are controlled. What we get in Canada, and especially when it comes to poultry, eggs, and dairy, our supply management, and you'll see in the video that I'm going to show right now, that's what Carney speaks about. We'll get back to it because I I just got some information for the people out there just so that you can better understand the impact that that actually has for Canada. But here is Mark Carney speaking about the agreement.
Minister Mark Carney, what do you think of the series of conditions that the U.S. trade rep says Canada has to meet in order to extend CUSMA, including bolstering market access to U.S. dairy and addressing the provincial bans on U.S. alcohol? Does this make you feel more encouraged or discouraged about reaching an agreement with U.S. President Donald Trump? And Premier Ford, if you could weigh in afterwards, please.
Well, I'll put this in the context. These are a subset of issues of a much bigger discussion. We've been clear about our approach to supply management. We continue to stand by that. We'll continue to protect supply management. And we continue to see tremendous benefits.
I can literally stop his 3-minute video right there. Basically, he's saying that he will not give the U.S. access to our dairy market, because that's what supply management is. That's what he's talking about, is the supply management that covers the dairy, poultry, and eggs. And I was looking at some of the numbers earlier. Right now, there's massive tariffs, and you know Trump was talking about this, how there are 200 to 300% tariffs on their products. So anything that is above the quota that we allow for the U.S., which is not very big, 200 to 300% tariff on their dairy items. And to put it into perspective, through Canada Supply Management, basically the main point is to control, you want to control production and you want to control the price. That's how they sell it, is that it's meant to protect our farmers. But did you see that video of this farmer, his dairy farmer, that is just showing how he's just throwing hundreds, if not thousands, if not, I don't even remember the numbers, but he had a hose going, just emptying perfectly good dairy because he's above his quota. He's not able to produce more, so he's wasting it. But the direct impact to Canada is estimated to drive our prices. So Canadians pay between 30 to 50% more for milk, cheese, and butter than Americans. And I spend half my time in the US. It is true. Their eggs are cheaper, their milk is cheaper, their cheese is cheaper. Everything that touches our supply management is so expensive. 30 to 50%. Can you imagine? You're paying a third to half more than what the market would actually suggest it's worth. And that is to pay that dairy mafia. You have a government entity, you can call it a government entity, but you have bureaucrats sitting between the farmers and the consumer, and they add costs to it to pay themselves. Let's be honest, that's exactly what they do, right?
Yeah, and I'm not a fan of the government being involved on that. Let the free market handle it. Better quality, better product, closer to market. It's ridiculous on how much it costs to actually get the milk onto the shelf here in Canada because of this. I don't want to see them involved anymore. This has been something that the Canadian government has been challenged on for quite some time by a lot of political opponents over the years, and we haven't seen a move on it. Like, is it really worth $900 billion, flush that down a drain for a dairy market, which is a fraction of that? And why can't the consumers choose? If they want to have American milk and they like that particular type of milk, then let them buy it. Let them have their milk and drink it too, is what I say.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm going to check right now how much is our dairy market worth, because I guarantee you it's not a big portion of the 900. It's not a big portion of the $900 billion. So the global dairy market is valued at, the world global market is valued at $991 billion. So almost the price of the USMCA worth that. And that is just Canada and the US, because if you include Mexico, it's above $1.1 billion, like between Canada and Mexico, not Mexico and the US. So they're saying projection indicates continuous growth, with the market expected to reach about 1.5 trillion by 2034. So you're talking about something worldwide that's not even worth right now. It's literally worth the USMCA contract worldwide.
And here's what I think they're really talking about cutting off. It would be the special interest group donations to the political parties that are upholding it. That tap would be turned off. If there's an open market on milk, the dairy cartel wouldn't be passing donations to the liberal parties and even conservative party that would be in favor of voting for them. There's a whole special interest market there that would be shut off because there'd be no need to do that anymore. So maybe that's what some of these people are trying to protect, their re-election donation campaign funds.
You're looking, the Canadian dairy market is valued at approximately $42.15 billion. So not even 5% of what Kuzma's worth. Not even 5%. And we're gonna argue about that part. That's the part we're gonna argue. And this is the whole market. I guarantee you people would not, it wouldn't go overnight to 100% of Canadians buying 100% American. All it would do is give fair price. You would see a 30 to 50% reduction overnight. That you would see that we would pay a lot less. But they're estimated that it's anywhere between 15.4 to 42.15 to 42.15 billion. So anywhere between 15 to 42-ish is what it could be worth to Americans. But that is definitely not worth the $900 to $950 billion that Kuzma is worth. And it's funny because the whole year, Mark Carney, now for more than 10 months or almost, Mark Carney has been traveling the world at our expense to try to find new deals. And I was looking at it the other day. You know how much business he's put together? Anywhere between $6 to $10 billion over the next 5 years. That's what he's been able to sign. And we're talking about $950 billion that he's risking by being an asshole, by being a fucking idiot. No, he knows what he's doing. Don't get me wrong, but we're talking about exchanging $900 billion of business for $6 to $10 billion over the next 5 years. It's insane. You're talking about $4.5 trillion over the same period for a $6 to $10 billion. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. But we got to stand up to Trump. Elbows up, everybody. Elbows up.
And part of this is, you know how the tariffs are, the tariff war going on. Most of the tariff stuff doesn't touch your everyday goods. So the stuff that you are getting over the border right now is not even touched by those tariffs at all. Nope. And you see how the market has responded in the pricing. Imagine if the USMCA is thrown away and now you actually have no more free trade on all those items. This is your clothing, this is your everyday items, produce, and other things. Those aren't currently being affected. If you think things are tight now, it's going to get way worse. It's going to absolutely get way worse. You're also talking about jobs, the automotive industry. There's a whole bunch of industries that will be touched by this. I think Carney is still trying to collapse Canada. And this is just one more of the big pieces of that puzzle coming together right now. Tariffs was just a beginning to give you a taste of it. Canadian dollars down to 71 cents. And this, if he keeps going in this direction, it's going to be in the 60s, low 60s, probably by mid next year.
You know, I was talking about this a couple of days ago. Not only that, but you start looking at our energy sector that is completely decimating right now with those requests in that MOU. Because I did a calculation right now at $130 a ton for CO2. You're looking at around 29 cents. It was 28 something cents per liter. You add the carbon capture pathway project that they want to add, it's another 5-6 cents a liter. And now they're talking about methane that would add even more costs to the price because now they want to reduce methane. But the numbers that are scary is you're looking at least 25 to 40% above market prices right now. Alberta's oil with those implementation with what's in the MOU would literally sell your oil and gas for 25 to 40%. Let's call it 25. Let's take the lowest number, 25% over market value, over world market value. So we would not be able to compete with Saudi Arabia. We couldn't compete with the US. There's no way because they don't have those measures, right? They don't overtax their own products in order to kill themselves. So who cares about a pipeline? Who cares if you have a pipeline, if you have a product that is 25 to 40% above the market? What's the point? Nobody's going to buy it.
Well, Wednesday morning, I had MLA Shane Getson on, who works for the UCP party on the energy corridor file. So it's actually his job to try and get our energy to market. And he talked about all these various different things that they're trying to work on, like going up through to Alaska, maybe make a deal and get us into not the Churchill port, but a port near there, south, and even going down to Washington. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. But I posed it to him that going through BC, trying to get to Prince Rupert Port, which is the ideal port for Alberta oil, it would add about $10 a barrel. Now, he didn't disagree with that. The math actually checks out. But he did say that we would have more ethical oil. And he thought that the market would pay a premium for ethical oil. I'm not sure about that, especially when the target market for him is India. So he wants to get to an eastern port in India. I don't think they care about the ethical oil. I think they care about the price because they'll be looking for a lot of quantity. But right now in their minds at the government level, they think that there would be a premium forced onto us, but that the world would pay that premium because it's ethical oil. I disagree with that statement completely. It's going to be like any other free market. Nobody pays premiums for ethical anything. They just want the best price. And if we had ethical products and pricing, you wouldn't have a lot of Chinese imports. There's a lot of ethical issues there. So look, I don't think the world works that way. I think it's a bit of a pipe dream to think that the world will pay more for Alberta oil because it has a smaller footprint and is more ethical. I think that's the pipe dream right there. But he did highlight how very, very unlikely it is in the short term to see us getting through a BC port. But if we had the green light, it could be up and running in 5 years, which is something I thought was pretty optimistic.
Nobody's going to pay for it, but at the same time, remember what Carney's been saying for months now, that Canada is going to become our best customer. So basically, he doesn't care that the product doesn't go on the world stage because he's going to make us buy it. You know, he could literally stop buying gas from the US and start buying oil and gas from Saudi Arabia and force us to only buy Canadian. Because if you look, I don't know if you look at Buy Canada, but the procurement, they now are starting to talk about the formulas that they're going to use on the procurement side of how bids are going to be accepted. Like if you want to do business with the US, with the Canadian government, they're going to have special restrictions or special points that you're going to get if you're a Canadian company. If your contract's above, if the value of your contract's above 25 million, 25 and above, you will get certain points. It's going to be restricted to 5 million soon, like in the next year. But you're talking about 25%. So if you get 25% mark on 100, if you're a Canadian company. So basically they could literally screw us. They could say, because they don't explain how much, who gets that 25%? Is it 25% on top of every, like, do you automatically get 25% because you're a Canadian company? But how much more does the monetary side? Because I've done a lot of business with private companies and the government. You know what matters the most in an RFP, in a request for a proposal? How much is it gonna fucking cost?
Yeah.
That is always the number one thing. So is it less than 25%? Because they don't explain. We have an idea of what they're doing, but we don't have the exact formula that they're going to use. So I wouldn't be surprised if the whole point of Mark Carney saying we're going to buy Canadian is that he's going to force us to pay 30, 40, 50 cents more at the pump. And it's already, there was, I think it was the Financial Post. I saw the video. I showed the video a couple of days ago on the show, but they were predicting, they had an expert there that was predicting that by the end of 2016, the end of 2026, gas price is estimated to go up $15 a barrel. So right now it's 55 USD a barrel. They were expecting it to be by the end of 2026 at $70.
Oh, wow.
A barrel. That's USD. Considering, as you said, I wouldn't be surprised if our dollar's worth 60. But let's say the prices stay the same, that we don't lose more than what we've lost already. You're looking at around 40 cents, a bit over 40 cents more at the pump. It's literally everywhere. So not only are Canadians paying 42.3% of our income to some type of tax, federal, provincial, or municipal, now they're expecting us to pay even more on everything because everything is covered with gas. Every single product, service out there is going to have a component of transport in it. So you're going to pay.
Yeah.
And guess what? They're not going to companies are not going to take that as part of their profits. They're not going to do the ethical thing and say, you know what, we should reduce our profit. No, it's you and I that's going to end up paying for it.
And when you tack in the carbon tax as well, which is going to kick in Alberta next year, you're just talking about more and more. The Buy Canadian thing, there's a study that just came out. It makes everything more expensive. So a lot of Canadians are dropping that now because they're looking at their pocketbook, because just like any RFP, price matters tremendously. We don't have the refining capabilities here in Canada, so we can't even turn our oil into gasoline. We do have to rely on other markets for that. So we have to have these relationships. And it takes many, many, many years to create a refinery with the environmental regulations that you have to get through. Our climate makes it difficult because half the year is frozen. There's a lot of things that needs to be addressed here. And getting into another big trade war with the U.S. is absolutely the wrong direction. But on behalf of everybody that's looking forward to the referendum in October 2026 to vote Alberta out of Canada, I would like to thank Carney, as he's making a lot more reasons for Alberta to really, really strongly sit down and look at that pocketbook and see why we should go ahead and make the move to separate from Canada.
I couldn't agree with you more. I wanted to take one more comment before we leave, and it is from Ann King. Nico, did you see the interview Jasmine Lane did? I want to see how your fake news spins all of that. Which interview is that? And by your fake news, I would imagine that you're from the US and you're saying Canada, because it ain't mine. The fake news, I don't own the fake news. So hopefully you're not in Canada and that's why you're saying your fake news. But I don't know which one, which interview you're talking about. I have no idea. I'll be honest, I watch very little of Jasmine Lane nowadays. I don't like her political stance. I don't like what she does. I've called her out many times on her stuff. I'm not a fan. Good for her for being able to build a platform like she did. But at the end of the day, she's not a conservative. Like she shouldn't be allowed to call herself a conservative. At least if she's going to call herself a conservative, it should always be with a capital C. Because yes, she works or she backs the Conservative Party of Canada, but she ain't no conservative. Let's be honest here.
No, and you brought this up quite a few times. Maybe the term should be Canadian conservative or counter-liberal, but not necessarily a traditional conservative.
Yeah, it's, again, she was, I don't know if because she tend to respond to some of my stuff when I talk about her, or I actually call her out her own post, but she was still, CBC went after Pierre Poilievre this week, and she was still defending him, saying like he's done nothing wrong. And I'm like, come on, can we stop this? Because, you know, this is the part that most people don't seem to understand. I have nothing against her personally. I've spoken to her behind closed doors. We've had chat conversations, and I have nothing against her as a person. But you cannot tell me that she's a real conservative, because she is not a conservative. She's as conservative as Pierre Poilievre is a conservative, and Pierre Poilievre ain't a conservative. This is what I'm saying. Like, Jasmine Lane and the others, like the Northern Perspective, Moose on the Loose does the same thing. As much as I enjoy his content, because he's probably the most researched guy in Canada when it comes to political content, like his content is insane. I don't know where he gets all that information from, but he will never go against Pierre Poilievre. So that right there, I can't really take you seriously on everything. I have to question everything that you say, because you won't question the only person that you should be questioning. If your leader, you're not gonna let yourself question the person that's supposed to represent you and your values. What the fuck are we doing here? Are we any better than the left? Because people don't trust CBC because they don't go after their own, and they will go against conservative, but they won't go against liberals. Are we any better if we don't go against the people that we are supposed to vote for, the people that are supposed to represent us? If I don't call them out, who will? That means I'm no better than what CBC does. I'm the same. And this is what I'm seeing from the right, I need to air quote when I say that, but that's what I'm seeing from the conservatives is they're no different from CBC. They just represent a different tribe, but it's all tribalism that I'm seeing all over the place now.
Yeah, and in the left-right spectrum is very difficult because that Overton window keeps moving, and depending on what side of the border you're on, north or south of the border, it's different there as well. Traditional conservative in Canada is a progressive conservative. That's somebody that's been that way for 40 years or so. Whereas south of the border, they're more traditional conservative, Christian conservative. Pro-life is something that's very important there. Here, it's very different, and I'm sad to say that that's the case. But I kind of want to hope that we switch from left-right and we get back into up-down and top-down, because it's really we're fighting against globalism, the globalist. And whether you're a Conservative Party member, fan, or not, they are part of that. All over the world, conservatives were putting down some of the laws for COVID and required you to take it. Pierre Poilievre himself said, we got to do these faster, get them out faster. That was his only critique to the Liberal government. They're all in the same party, the globalist party. We should really start calling them that, the globalist party. And, I like to kind of focus on trying to remove that. Whether you're a fan of Poilievre or Carney or basically any politician here in Canada, you're a fan of globalism if you're a fan of them. And that's one of the things that I don't think we spend enough time on, because we're so stuck in the left and right, the blue and the red, that we're not really paying attention that they all have strings attached to them, and these strings lead outside of Canada. And the RCMP, when it got close, they got shut down. When it was being talked about in the House of Commons, there's some committees going on, they got shut down with the proroguement. Nobody is talking about that. Like, why are we not looking into the RCMP report that there is foreign interference with our politicians? A whole bunch of them are unnamed. They're still in there. And nobody's talking about that anymore because we're so focused on Trump or Carney or even Pierre at this stage. So I want to try hoping that Jasmine Lane and some of those others start zooming out a little bit and realizing this is not a left-right issue. This is a top-down issue, and we're all on the bottom. Even Jasmine is joining us on the bottom of this one.
Couldn't agree with you more, and that's my whole point. That's why I call them out all the time. And Mark Nixon answered. He was on I did record last week with him, and he had the balls, and I thanked him for that. To have the balls to come on my show after I called them out, because that was the whole point. I'm not there to try to insult her. That's not my intentions. My intentions is that she's a very liberal person that believes that she's a conservative because of Pierre Poilievre. But Pierre Poilievre is not a conservative at all. You cannot having progressive and conservative in the same sentence is an oxymoron. You can't have progressive. It's the point of being a conservative is that you're not progressive. That's a liberal. What are we talking about here? So I agree, and that is all I would love, is to be able to have an open conversation with them, to actually ask them those hard questions that they never do answer. Because I don't think they would answer them, but I would love to give them the chance to speak about it. Although, what I'm thinking is, and that's just my opinion, I've had enough conversation with them in the past to know that that's probably true, but you can't be 100% right about anything anymore. They all feel the same way we do. They just don't have the balls to say it out loud because it would hurt their bottom line. They would lose so many followers. They would lose so much money. You can't. I made peace with the fact that Pierre Poilievre will never have the balls to come on my show. Although I guarantee you that if he did, he would learn a shit ton of what people actually want. But if they talk against that, that means they won't get those phone calls anymore. You won't get to interview him anymore because that's the type of person that he is. He doesn't want to be challenged. And that's literally all of our politicians out there. I don't know. I can't think. I'll give credit to Maxime Bernier on that one. However you feel about him, I've interviewed him a couple of times. He never asked about the questions. He did not care. He didn't care. He just showed up, did not know what we were going to talk about. You might agree, disagree with him. It's irrelevant. I have to respect the fact that he came in and I asked him questions and I wasn't I don't do lowball interview. I'm going to ask you questions that you choose not to answer it. That's on you. That's not on me. People can see what you don't want to answer and what you're answering. But I wish that these conservatives would have the courage to do that and just to be questioned. Because if you don't allow people to question you, how are you supposed to grow? How are you supposed to see what's actually going on? Because I agree with you, it's a globalist agenda. It is a uniparty in Canada. They all work for globalist bureaucrats that are not Canadians. And I don't care who you point to. You're never going to be able to show me that Pierre Poilievre cares about Canadians when he had the opportunity as early as November 7th to trigger an election and crumble all those censorship bills that we were talking about earlier. They would have all been flushed down the toilet just like Bill C-63 did. Yet he did not have the balls to vote against the budget with the NDP, the Bloc, and the Green. He chose his career and voted for the Liberal budget to protect the Liberals. Yet 10 days later, they made a big show for the masses in the House of Commons. We are standing up to this budget. Bitch, please. You voted for it 10 days ago when it fucking mattered. And just that. I threw that in the face of Mark Nixon. I threw that in the face of Jasmine Lane. They will not touch that one. I like Mark. Like, I'll be honest, I like Mark. I've spoken to him many times behind the scene. I like the guy. But there's certain things they will not address because they know what it will cause them. And that's my opinion. I'm not speaking. Those are not their words. Those are my words. This is what I don't see what else it could be outside of they don't want to get hurt. Because it could hurt them. No, obviously, talking the way we do, people don't like us very much.
Sure, and we get it from all sides because we are going to be critiquing everybody. But when you get a phone call from Poilievre and say, hey, I like what you're doing, suddenly you are definitely very careful because you want to get that second phone call, that third phone call. So I think they're pretty smart on how they're doing it. And this was a conversation I had last night with an influencer who asked a question. How many on the conservative side are bought off by the Conservative Party? Is it like 50%? Because that's what it looks like. And I said, I bet you it's way less than that. But a whole bunch of them are just following in line because they can see how the more successful ones are getting their clicks and stuff. So they're just following in line. They're not necessarily paid off, but they see what the benefit would be. So it's sad. Okay. So, but at the end of the day, Nico, I'm going to do a little bit of pushback on that. I rather have the Jasmine Lanes and the Mark Nixons out there than not, because at least they are going against the Liberal side of things and bringing awareness to that. But I would like to see, if you want to be a truthful, independent influencer or journalist or commentator, then do that. It is definitely the hardest road, though. We don't have a bottom line. Let's be very honest with everybody. We do what we can to kind of get by because we know that if you go against everybody, it's very difficult to build a large base. I've had that opportunity, sat down, like if we niched something or we really promoted something, one good example would be the Coots guys. If I would have just jumped on that bandwagon and said nothing but innocent until proven guilty, never talked about the concerns I had, never talked about what came up in court, just kind of whitewashed that entire thing, probably would have been very comfortable, but I wouldn't have slept very well. I wanted to make sure I built a base of integrity, and then the people who do follow us and do stick by us, they stay loyal as long as we stay loyal to them. So I prefer that model. It's going to be a slower growth. We won't explode overnight with that. But at the end of the day, people do come back because they know that they're going to get the truth. And when I meet people in the real world, they appreciate it. So I think we've made the right choice, Nico. You stick to your Christian values. We have one major sponsor that we're going to have to visit one day. And until then, just keep your head high and stay strong. But I am glad that they're around more than I would be if they weren't around.
I agree with you. And that is the reason I call them out is out of love, is because I care, or else I wouldn't call them out at all. I just would ignore it. Because the thing is that I know what they talk about and I know why they do it, because it brings a lot of clicks. They're not stupid. Like if you understand social media and you look at what they always talk about, they're very good at what they do. And they understand what will bring the clicks. But one of the gripe that I had with Jasmine Lane on the video I released, she responded. I should go check if she did respond to my response. But she basically said that she covers the news that is trending. So I'm like, okay, so basically you're only talking about what mainstream media wants you to talk about. Because you're not approaching the subjects that are not being covered by mainstream media. And most of the subjects I talk about are the ones that are not covered by mainstream media. So in a sense, I agree with you that they have their place. As in, if you're liberal right now and you're starting to question Carney, you're like, okay, where else could I look for news? You can look at Jasmine Lane, Mark Nixon, the Northern Perspective, but hopefully you don't stop there. Once you start questioning, you start to see that they have their biases, and that's where guys like you and I step in. We're like the step that's after that. Okay, I questioned the liberals, I questioned Carney. Where am I looking? Okay, I'm gonna look to the more mainstream conservatives out there so they can show me the other side of the news. But then you're like, okay, but hold on, there's problems here too. What the fuck is going on here? Then they jump to guys like you and I. So I agree that they have their spot. They absolutely do have their spot. I just want to take a couple of comments before we go because we're kind of over.
And while you're doing that, and they probably say the same thing about us because we are not overlapping on a lot of the trendy stuff. We're talking about the more difficult stuff. So I'm like a cold shower in the mornings. You start your days with me. And then at the end of the day, you get a big punch in the face by you. And then throughout the day, you'll find a whole bunch of things a little bit easier to digest. But I think they probably think the same thing about us. Like we do take on the harder subjects that they're not comfortable with, and they probably appreciate that we exist as well.
I know Mark has told me multiple times behind closed doors that he really appreciates what I do because it's needed. But it's not for everyone to be speaking about what we speak about because, as you said, I'm hated from both sides. Like the conservatives don't like me, the liberals don't like me, and technically I consider myself way more conservative than the conservatives. So nobody seems to like me outside of people that are like the people in the comment section right now that have gone through that evolution already. I wanted to take Ryan Prince's comment. You guys are awesome, Jason and Nico. This platform has great information. Thank you. Don't want to disappoint you, but yes, first and foremost, thank you for the comment because much appreciated. But unfortunately,
I'm a little bit biased towards Ryan. I think he's absolutely correct. There's my bias.
But all to say that I've never seen your name before, and if you found us tonight, Jason's not normally there. I'm normally joined by a liberal. But this is kind of proving to me that, like I've told you before, we need to do something that is more constant, you and I, when it comes to the more conservative side of things, not just one mashup every 2 weeks. We might have to figure that one out because I enjoy recording with you because we're both extremely researched into what we're talking about and we're not scared to go there.
I do have an update for you from Pastor Arthur Pulaski. He did reach his goal, that fundraiser. They will be serving steaks for Christmas dinner that night. So thank you very much for all your effort on that fundraiser. They did reach their goal.
Did they? Awesome. Good for them. Good for them.
And maybe we'll do it again next year, I told them.
You know, I don't deserve any credit for this. This is something that everybody should do. If you have the power to help others, you should just do it. I saw a picture. I don't remember where I saw it from, but it was in an article I was reading. It was just a picture of a sticky note that the wife left to her husband. She just left that on the front door, on the inside of the door, obviously, and it just said, "Help someone today."
Oh,
that's
perfect.
Love it. Oh, love it. Every time you go out, you're just like try to help somebody out there. So. Yeah, that to me is a no-brainer. And last comment for today is gonna go to CPC Police, PC Police. Oh shit, CPC, PC Police. Max cannot be taken seriously with his voice and accent. And you know, that's my biggest problem with Max. There's two things I don't like about Max. I don't like his French accent coming from a Frenchie, but his French is broken, so it's not going to be appealing to a lot of very English people, and I get it. And the other thing, he's a lifelong politician. So those are the two things that bothers me about Max, because I agree with a lot of the things that he says. Actually, I'm probably a lot worse than what he says, but I agree with a lot of it. I agree, PC. The French accent is probably too much to take for most English Canadians, and he is a career politician, which is one of my biggest gripe with politicians. They should never be allowed to forget or to not work outside of the public sector. Like, Pierre Poilievre has never done anything outside of the public sector. How can he understand what it is to be Canadian when he's never worked in the private sector?
No, fair enough. And those are valid critiques. Certainly, I brought them up myself as well. And then the one thing I do like about what he's doing is he's providing the everyday person a opportunity to become a politician, get into a party, and do some good. It may take several more elections to get there, but I do think at some point in the future, you're going to see somebody who learned from Max in that House of Commons doing some good work. So I do thank him for that particular portion of it. But there's very, very large portion of Canada that won't elect him based solely on his accent and his broken English. But if his legacy ends up being he spawned a few other good politicians, then we can take that. I think that would be well worth it.
That's a good point. That's a good point that he might. I don't see him ever leading Canada. Don't get me wrong here. But he could be the one opening up a door to somebody else that might. So I like that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
I never saw it that way, but good point.
Yeah, I do appreciate the platform he's created and the people around. Nothing's perfect. Certainly not, that party at this stage. But in a couple of elections, like if the Conservatives ever win and then really, mess up, that would open the door to an alternative Conservative party. So if that platform's there's a few people that ran a few times, got comfortable door knocking, talking to people, and they step up to become a future leader in Canada in the House of Commons or further, then I think that all those broken English interviews would be worth it at that point.
I agree. We'll as Rob likes to say, we'll put a pin in it because we're literally 21 minutes over. But it's always a pleasure, Jason. Always a pleasure to record with you. So I appreciate you coming on, replacing our liberal. You did not do a very good job at being a liberal, though. Just let me. It's a good thing.
Well, I think I navigated the Jasmine Lane stuff. I was a little bit fair, and bring a little bit of balance to it, and even with the Mac stuff.
But all to say for the people out,
he's ruining our future. So,
yep, couldn't agree more. So for the people that found us for the first time today, make sure to like, we always want to hear your comments. That's the whole point of what we do. That's why we do it live. We want to see what you guys think. But subscribe. If you just found Jason, make sure to subscribe. If you just found the Political Orphans, make sure to subscribe too. Because at the end of the day, you can give us tips just like Stu did. You can buy us a coffee. You can see the QR code at the top. But what really matters is that you guys come back, you guys comment, and you guys just have that conversation, that civil discourse, that it's not left versus right, it's top versus bottom. So we need to be able to have those conversations where we disagree. But that's a good thing, because we need to be able to disagree to understand that we're not the problems. The problem is, and I'm not pointing at God, I'm pointing at the people that are trying to take the spot of God. So anything you want to add before I shut it off?
I just want to thank everybody for hanging out with us, and John Carpay for joining us as well, having that conversation about all the different bills. You should pay close attention to it. Yes, they didn't create a Big Brother, I'm going to rule you act, but they certainly broke it down into all the pieces, and they're bringing them in. So pay close attention to that. An active society is an informed society, so we can go ahead and take action as a society. So thank you very much, John, for doing that kind of work. And Nico, thank you for bringing this kind of stuff forward on a Thursday night. I appreciate it.
Man, the only thing I'm going to ask, if I can get Pawlowski to swear, I can get John Carpay to say, wax my balls. You need to call that bill what it's called. It's a big fuck you bill. That's what it's called. Just saying.
Maybe you'll catch me on a Saturday night after we get into some, but maybe you'll get me there, brother. I'm going to play hard to get on that one, but I appreciate your time and your efforts.
Absolutely, guys. We will thank you for joining us. We will see you on Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, have a good weekend, guys.
Take care.